I'm dazed and confused. Is it stay? Is it go? Give me a clue, 'cause I just want to know. Give me a clue as to where I am.
Do you think the Yardbirds were the first supergroup? When you think about it, this one band had the uncanny fortune of having the three best blues guitarists in England: Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. These three went on to form bands that changed blues history. I have interviews with Willie Dixon, Muddy Waters, and John Lee Hooker, those in a later video, that these bands ended up saving American blues music. We will soon do a deep dive on their first albums: Led Zeppelin 1, Fresh Cream, and Jeff Beck's Truth. Truth was the very first album I ever bought where I fully understood that blues was its roots. Then I started researching the masters, Muddy, Dixon, Howlin' Wolf. The blues took a hold of me. Then it finally hit me. These guys turned me on to our American blues. Full circle, as Muddy tells it.
Didn't like my sound. They wanted something there, this hard rock stuff, you know. And thanks to the Rolling Stone, they introduced me to the white kids in the United States. Because a lot of kids didn't know anything about Muddy Waters until Rolling Stone came out making my songs and putting on the back of the LP. Muddy Waters wrote this, and then people wondered who was Muddy Waters.
So, Truth inspired my now 50-year-old labor of love, collecting albums, studying liner notes, following band members to other bands. I started collecting obscure photos and videos. I gathered and then corroborated quite a bit of anecdotal trivia and history of how the British saved American blues. The original members of the Yardbirds were Keith Relf, who sang and played the Mississippi saxophone. That's a harmonica, guys. Jim McCarty on drums, Chris Dredge on rhythm guitar, and Paul Samuel Smith on bass. Yes, 57 years ago, in 1962, the music scene in London was cranking up. The Beatles had just returned from Germany, and in Richmond, England, a Russian named Giorgio Gromelsky started a nightclub. He needed a constant draw for the club because it was at the very end of the public rail line outside of London. His idea was to have a house band that could create a following that brings crowds in every night. He decided on a new group, the Rolling Stones. So, his new format is working, and very soon after opening, the press called to do an article about its growing popularity. They asked the name of the place. Gromelsky didn't have a name yet. The sign out front just read, Rhythm and Booze. He scrambled to think of a name. He remembered that every night the Rolling Stones raved up and stretched out the last song of the night, a Bo Diddley song about a dance called the Crawdad. So, he spontaneously told the reporter, "It's the Crawdaddy Club," and their house band was the Stones. He got press. It didn't take long, and by early '63, the Stones now had a huge following, and they were looking to move on, move up, and move out. When the Stones did not show up for the gig that night, Gromelsky quickly called another band he had heard about, the Five Live Yardbirds. They were a relatively new band, and very soon their popularity grew, and the subpar guitar man they had was asked to leave. They were looking for a new guitarist. So, they needed a new guitar player like yesterday. Through a connection Gromelsky had, he convinced the most blues-centered guitar man in England to join, Eric Clapton. Now the band had Clapton and a new home at the Crawdaddy. Times was good for playing the blues. Gromelsky officially started managing the band. The band was mainly playing covers by Chicago bluesmen, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, Elmore James. Clapton was in his element. They played extended versions that would build and build with power chords to whip up the audience and sell more beer. During these extended raved up builds, Clapton would often break a guitar string. While he was putting on a new string, the audience would very slowly clap their hands. From that, Gromelsky is credited with coming up with the nickname Slow Hand.
It was during this period that the great Sonny Boy Williamson was brought over by the National Jazz Federation in Giorgio, and we became his backing band. We were English white kids, we'd never played with the real thing, only really heard it on record, and to play with this guy and go on and make an album with him was just an extraordinary experience.
That's straight 8 Pontiac. We gonna get on the highway.
This squarely placed the Yardbirds as the first and leading blues rock band in England. The Yardbirds were now the band every aspiring blues guitarist wanted to join. But Gromelsky smelled money. He was constantly after the band to produce hits. Their first hit was really the infamous For Your Love. That shot to the top of the charts. It got heavy radio play both in England and, for the first time for a British blues band, radio in the US. It sold over 1 million copies and went gold. Clapton was a blues purist. His vision extended far beyond 3-minute singles. Too frustrated by this commercial approach, he left the group on March 25, 1965, the exact day that For Your Love was released to the public. But Clapton was preoccupied with his next band. He quickly went to John Mayall's Blues Breakers, quickly did but one album, and quickly left. He had a different vision, to start another band, but this time he dragged 2 jazz players into his world of blues. He formed Cream with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker. Because Clapton dragged jazz boys into the blues world, they had to rely on some old blues standards for fresh cream. Those standards could be learned, rearranged, and many times stretched out and raved up. They covered Willie Dixon's Spoonful, Muddy's Rollin' and Tumblin', and one of my favorite surprises, Robert Johnson's From 4 Until Late. That had some lyrics that grabbed my attention as a teenager. A woman is like a dresser, some man always running through its drawers.
A woman is like a dresser, some man always running through its drawers.
Hey, thank you for watching How the Brits Saved Our Blues. Keep the blues alive.